We're all ready now to start doing our top. I have it all sanded down and smooth, but we need to go in and we need to cut our holes out for our locks. So I cut this one and then use our drill again and drill through the holes that we have that we're going to put our locks on with screws, because back here you have solid material and you want to be sure and know exactly where you need to put your, not screws, but your bolts and screws to adhere your hardware. So do that, cut out the hole for the lock, because the lock has a little stick out here. It needs to fit flush. Oops, I think that's upside down. It needs to fit flush and go back in that hole. So make sure you cut your fabric out, drill your holes out. I just finished drilling all my holes out. I cut my fabric from the lock areas. Now, when I look at my case in the back, my holes aren't real precise and I don't want my lid to sit cattywampus on my case. So I'm going to put my lid back on, line all the edges up nicely. And then in the back, I'm going to put on my latch with just some toothpicks, just to line it up. Try to center those. The toothpicks are just so that to help you hold it in place. Then I can use a pencil and mark my holes. Oops. And now I know right where to drill in my top so that my latches will line back up good and my case will close and everything will line up front to back. So that's how I do that. Okay, I'm ready to start my lid. I'm ready to start recovering the lid. I've drilled out all my hardware holes, and as I sanded, one of the corners was out, I noticed, so I filled that in, resanded that. The top didn't need to be re-glued, it's very sturdy. But one thing I would suggest doing is the hardware holes on the top for the handle, take something and poke through to make sure that those are clear. Sometimes Tolex gets in there. So make sure those are nice and clear. Clean up your work area. And my next hard choice was deciding what fabric to use on the top. This line comes with a whole bunch of pretty coordinating prints, and this is our original that I'm putting on the bottom. And this was what I was going to use in the first place. This is one of the coordinating prints, and I was going to use this for the top to have something of contrast. But then when I looked at the other ones of the line that they had, I decided on this one. I don't know why, I just liked it. It's like when you quilt, something hits you and you like it, so I'm hoping it looks good. But we're going to be using this print. I've already OD coated this, so it's all ready to put on. I forgot to say earlier how I measured for my lid for the covering. I measured the width and the length. Then I measured how much I have here, and I want this to wrap around and go in like this. So when we put our insert in, we'll have material under and it's nice and covered. So I had to measure all the way from here down around, and then I added about 1/2 inch on each side. Same over here. So I have plenty of material. We're going to cut that off when we're all done gluing everything on and make it nice and neat. What we need to have to recover is our top, our material that we're going to be recovering with, a wet rag because we're going to use a lot of glue again. And this is going to be glued in 2 steps. The top is going to be glued in 2 steps. We're going to glue from about here to here on each side. And the top, we want to leave it no glue here because later we're going to pull and cut a nice corner so we have a nice corner on each end. And when we're pulling to make it tight, we want to make sure this is good and dry. So just going to put some glue on here, and you don't really need to get glue real close to these holes because our handle's going to be holding that down and the little pretties that we'll put on there. So try not to get it down in these cracks. Then layer on. Try to keep it out of those holes for our hardware for our handle. I'll go ahead and glue it up and then I'll show you when I'm done. I have my lid pretty much glued up. Got quite a bit of glue on here, and I'm going to smooth out just a little more. It dries pretty quick, so you don't want to leave it too long before you start putting your fabric on. But you want to make sure everything is covered good. And in the front, I got a little too close to my corner, so I'm just going to wipe a little bit of that glue off on both of those edges. Oops. I don't want it right on my corner. And I'm ready to start with my fabric. So this is our front. If you have a directional fabric, you want to know which is the front and the back. I don't, so I'm not going to worry about that. And I measured my top and added additional fabric, and you'll see here in a minute. Down. I'm rolling all the way to the edges and kind of over the edges. As good as I can get. Now I'm going to pull it around the edges and work those edges down to where I have the glue. Oops, sorry. Work those edges down to where I have the glue. And then I'm going to put clips on it to hold it. And I just cut off the clips off one of these hangers, well, a bunch of these hangers. And that kind of holds it on while it's drying. And if you noticed, I put glue all the way down to this front edge, on all the way around. So I'm going to do the next edge. Pull that down nice and taut. Get all your air bubbles out that you can. Right over to the corners. Put that around. Clamp that. Oops. Now to this side. Pull, taut. Get those air bubbles out. Whatever you have to do, you may have to lift to get the air bubbles out again. I hope it dries better than it's looking right now, because you can really see every detail under through the cloth. I mean, if it dries better. If not, I will be changing it. When you're doing your top, don't leave the clamps on, especially on this light colored material. I noticed I could see where the clamps had been. So just leave your clamps on while you're working on securing the top, and then take the clamps off, smooth the parts where the clamps were out while the glue is still dry. After covering with the pink polka dotted material, I noticed that the glue was drying splotchy, and I saw a lot of splotchy looks. I could see where every stitch was supposed to go for the little leaves on the top, so I decided to take that pink material off and replace it, and I'm going to use a green material. So the next clip I will have different material on the lid.